All right, we're continuing this week in Lech Lecha, in the book Torah Or, on page 22. And we talked about Abraham, and Abraham being the first Jew, and what exactly does it mean to be a Jew? What did Abraham begin, and what are we supposed to continue? Oh. So the Rebbe said that Abraham essentially was a very, very high person, but God told him to go down from his level when he told him to lech lecha, to go out, and then when he got the circumcision, the bris milah, which that's at the end of we're talking about Parshas Lech Lecha. Then he gave him a special added power to really come out and to really have an effect on the world. So Abraham really began what we call 2,000 years of Torah. Because the purpose of the Jewish people essentially is to correct what Adam did. Adam, it says he sinned. What was the sin that he made? So the sin, this is talked about otherwise. But essentially what the sin that Adam made was confusion. He made confusion in the world. Before Adam, there was no confusion. Things were clear. But Adam brought tremendous confusion. But he brought confusion in the deepest of levels. Namely, what is good and what is bad. No bigger confusion than that. Right? A person in his life, every moment he has to decide what's good and what's bad. I mean, should he wake up in the morning? Is it good to wake up? It's not good to wake up. So, some people, is it good to brush your teeth? Not good to brush your teeth. Is it good to put on clothes? Is it not good to put on clothes? And then he says, what type of clothes should he put on? What type of, how should he go? Where should he go? What should he do? What should he say? What should he say? Nothing. Should he talk? Should he? Every moment, the person has to make some sort of choices and decide what's good and what's not good. Should he just go according to his urges? There's no good and there's no bad. Just go according to your urges. Well, you just made a decision. You made a decision that it's good to go according to your urges. Right? I remember somebody once told me there's no such thing as truth. Everybody decides their own truth. There's no such thing as truth. Everybody decides. I said, oh yeah, that statement you just made, is that true or is it not true? Right, that everybody makes their own truth. You always have to be making decisions. So before Adam ate from the tree, things were pretty clear. What God wanted and what's good and what's bad. Maybe close the door, please. And then afterwards, it's like this says that as soon as he ate from the tree, Yodei Tov V'Ra, that man knew what was good. It's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In other words, all of a sudden, they themselves had an opinion what's good and evil. Right? Eitz Das Tov V'Ra. Then you'll start to know yourself what's good and wrong. He already knew.
Freedom of choice preceded.
Freedom of choice preceded. Of course, man, that's the essence of man, is that he has freedom of choice. But God told him what to choose.
Still he made a mistake.
Right? Still he made a mistake. But he made a mistake because it was tempting. It was tempting to make him. And that was God said to Adam, what is good is not necessarily what feels good. Not necessarily what you think is good. Right? If it feels pleasurable. Pleasurable is not good. Pleasure and good are two different things. Adam said, well, let's see, ate from the tree and said, what are you talking about? Pleasure is good. What's pain is bad. And different variations on that. Of course, it's not that simple. But from then, man decided he's the boss, he's going to do what he wants. And it became all cloudy, exactly what God does want. And then it became even more cloudy if there's even such a thing as God at all. And until it just got so tremendously opaque, the whole situation, that every creation was all perverting their ways and doing anything they could to have pleasure.
What is it that the Torah,
something like San Francisco. What?
The Torah's job is to guide us through that, because it seems like God wanted us to go
Right.
through this confusion to get to.
Okay, the one big problem is once a person decides what's good and what's bad, so a lot of times he decides that what really is good is bad.
Well, we're not talking about like what people feel. Let's say we're leading a Torah life that's
Right.
guiding us what's
Yeah.
right and what's wrong. It's
That doesn't fix the thing up. The Chassidut, Chabad, in general, Chassidut of the Baal Shem Tov, but Chassidut Chabad especially, gives people what's called a little bit of a taste of the tree of life. Because it's possible to learn from the Torah and make the Torah into a medicine of death, of separation. We've seen it. People learn the Torah, and because they're considered to be a rabbi or whatever, so they encourage others to hate other Jews. They're looking around for what type of Jew to hate. Right? But they found. And sometimes they just hate anybody who doesn't agree with them. Right? They can't find any sort of a good in anybody else. The only thing that's good is me and what I think. So the Torah can be sometimes worse than not learning Torah. Sometimes it's better that certain people did not learn Torah. Because if they wouldn't learn Torah, at least nobody would listen to them. At least the religious people wouldn't listen to them. But now when they learn Torah, so everyone listens to them to...
So God made a big balagan.
What?
God made a big balagan.
He would make the balagan.
He let us make the balagan.
Listen, the fact of the matter is that God controls everything.
Yeah.
That's the fact. So everything that happened, and everything that happens, even the biggest mistakes, we can't say that that's outside of what God wants.
Yeah.
In some strange, incomprehensible way, this is exactly what God wants.
I wasn't judging balagan as being bad.
Yeah, I understand. No, it is bad.
It is bad,
But it's not.
It gives us something
It's not
to do.
absolutely bad. It's not
Gives us a
absolutely.
chance to make tshuva.
Right. It's not. That's right. It's not absolutely bad. Somehow or other, from this, will come out good. But who knows what the good is? That said, Abraham. Abraham came in order to remind people what the good is. First of all, to remind people that God is not somebody up in the clouds. That God is creating everyone. God is everybody's life. God is everybody's reality. God is everybody's being. Right? God creates all reality. Abraham is trying to tell us that God is one. That was his thing. Vayikra b'shem b'shem Hashem keil olam. He called over, that's going to be in this week's portion, Parshat Vayikra. He made an Eshel and he called over there, he made a special place and he invited people and he told them that God is one. God is one. What does it mean God is one? There's nothing except for God. God is creating everything all the time. Everything is being created by God constantly for a purpose. The Rambam, if you open up the Rambam right in the beginning, it says the same message. And if everything was gone, it wouldn't affect the existence of God at all. Because everything is being created from absolute nothing, from God's goodness. And that was Abraham. Abraham was love, showing everybody how much God loves it. From Abraham we became God's chosen people. Not the same way as it was after Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai became even more, but we'll talk about that later. But Abraham, that's what a Jew is. And then God changed Abraham's name. Okay, so Abraham, the whole thing of Abraham, after he got the circumcision, as Abraham had the ability to change the physical world. To change the physical world. Okay, let's just do the last three lines of the previous. Ki. See where you have it? Ki. Ki al yedei Avram. See, the first word in the line is Yisrael. Right at the bottom. Very bottom. No. This right there. The bottom, third line from the bottom. Yeah. Ki al yedei Avram, by means of Avram. Yeah. Al yedei Avram nimshach kav yamin, was drawn God's love into the world. God's kindness, God's love was drawn into the world that everyone could see how much God loves us. He's creating everybody. Creating the animals, the trees, the plants, but the animals and the trees and plants can't appreciate it. Human beings can't appreciate it, and they must appreciate it. That's what God created the world for, just to appreciate Him. V'zeu inyan Sefer Bereshit. This is the whole book of Sefer Bereshit. She'ein bo mitzvot the Torah. There are no commandments from the Torah in the whole book of Genesis. Rak Perish Avram, there's only the parasha, the story about Abraham, the story about Yitzchak, etc. Shem Kodem, the Torah, they are before the Torah, Ve'em Eim Imshichu, and they drove down to be the level of Torah. They were the preparations. So it says there were 2,000 years of confusion, 2,000 years of Torah, and 2,000 years of Mashiach. Interesting. The 2,000 years of confusion, that's from Adam until Abraham. Abraham was born almost at the year 2000, a little bit before, 50 years before, something like that.
You just said
Then 1 second. Then there was 2,000 years of Torah. That's from from Abraham until the Beis Hamikdash, the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. And then there was, then from that time on to now is called the 2,000 years of Mashiach. Mashiach is supposed to give. Yes, what did you ask?
You just said there was no commandments given in Bereshit.
Right.
But in this parsha, the commandment of Brit Milah is given.
Right. We don't do Brit Milah because of what Abraham did. No. Abraham opened up. We learned that in the Sikha.
But it doesn't say that. I'm not saying that we do it because God gave it as a commandment.
Of course, there were commandments. God commanded Abraham to Peru Uravu, to be fruitful and multiply, and there were the 7 Noahide commandments were given, also 7 Noahide commandments. But when God gave the Torah, the Torah, Mount Sinai, so everything became renewed. The whole entire thing became renewed. So now all the commandments are only those that are mentioned afterwards. The first commandment is considered to be HaChodesh Zelachem Rosh Chodeshim. Okay, there's certain exceptions, but okay. So Abraham opened the way, Yitzchak opened the way, Yaakov opened the way, so that we could start to feel God's goodness in the world. That's what Adam was supposed to have done. Essentially, if Adam would not have sinned, everyone would have been Jewish. They would have had the purpose of the Jews. When God made the world, He made it to be fixed up. Asher bor Elokim la'asot. God made Asher bor Elokim la'asot. He brings over here, we're at the example of Turmasin. Okay, let's go. Let's just learn this one paragraph. Lefiza, according to this, tzorech lahavin, we have to understand. Madua, why Lo Zachu did not merit Yisrael, the Jewish people, Lakabel, to receive the Torah Ajahayu Begalus Mitzrayim, until after they were in the exile of Egypt. Vayamoraru B'chomer Levaini, and then that Paro embittered the lives of the Jews with whatever it is, with cement and bricks. They had to build these weird buildings, whatever they had to build. Halokavar zach they didn't have to. Why did they have to work so hard? Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they already did the work. They broke through. We just finished saying that. We had 2-3 paragraphs. How Avram broke through the darkness of the world and he brought godliness down. God added the letter Hey to his name, which was Atik, that came into Bina. Pagam, and also also, how was Abraham able to make all of these unifications in the world? Kodem Shenimo, before he was circumcised. He was circumcised when Ki Hamila, because the circumcision Nitna was given lo to him. Achakach, afterwards, Kisha Aya ben Tzadik Tes Shana, when he was 99 years old. And Lech Lecha, God said that Lech Lecha when he was 75? no, look at it. Rak the Isa, but it says Kayam Avram Kala Torah Kula. It says that Abraham did the whole entire Torah before it was given. And how could Abraham do all the Torah before it was given? Maybe he did most of it, but that's not what he said. He did all of it. How could Abraham do the mitzvah of tefillin? Asher that nizkar sham yetzias Mitzrayim. In the parsha of your tefillin, there's parchments. That's what the essence of the tefillin are, the parchments that are inside. If your parchments are missing one letter, then they're disqualified. If they're missing the whole entire story of going, I am God that took you out of Egypt, for sure it's no good. Well, there was no such thing as Egypt. God didn't take the Jews out of Egypt, so how could Abraham put on tefillin? Va'az adayin lo haya klal galos Mitzrayim. Then there wasn't anything about going out of Egypt. So what was happening? I mean, Abraham, he did do all the mitzvahs. How could he do all the mitzvahs? And if he did all the mitzvahs, then why wasn't the Torah just given through him? And also, how the Torah couldn't have been given through him, because it says in the Torah that God took the Jews out of Egypt. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. What's going on? So maybe Abraham, was he really great? He did all the Torah, but maybe he made a mistake. How could he do all the Torah if the Torah hadn't been given? And not only that, they hadn't gone out of Egypt, so the tefillin for sure weren't any good. Says the Rebbe, I'll explain the whole thing. There's what's called spiritual and physical. And Abraham's doing of the Torah was internal, it was spiritual. The only one was Bris Milah. Bris Milah was the only one that was physical. Vayomer Hashem, that God spoke to Abraham, Hainu, his galus, Famshachas, or Ensof. This is drawing down the essence of the infinite one. Hamshachas, or Ensof, Keser Elyon, the upper crown of God. Like we said, this is level of Atik. Remember we learned that? Is it? Milamayla lamata, from above to below, but it was drawn down from above to below in Penimius, in an inside way. Is that it could be revealed also in physical. Revealing God mamash physical in the world. This cannot be done in an orderly way. To reveal godliness in this physical world, it cannot be done in a graduated way. They had to first of all be actually made bitter their lives. The call of avodah kasha, in this difficult service, naseis galus, then there was revealed a level which was above hishtalshlus. There was revealed a level which was totally above the whole creation to take them out of Egypt. Ki az yochal is galus gam lamata, then it can be revealed also below Hishtalshlus. It can be revealed below all this chain of creation. In this physical world, we see the chain of creation, we see all the spiritual levels, we don't see nothing. What do we see? We see absolutely nothing in this world. Right? Once in a while you see a beautiful sunset, you see the wind in the trees, you see something, right? A quiet night. You start to think maybe in a river, something, a child's eyes, you look, maybe the world is worth something. You go to a baby born, somebody dies, somebody this. You get little hints. Maybe there's more to it than what meets the eye. Maybe. That's because this physical world is what's called below his shtalshlus. It's below the whole chain of creation. In this world, nothing spiritual. A little bit. When God gave the Torah, though, that all changed. God gave the Torah, the actual spiritual became physical. It's a physical book. You do the physical book, you read the book, you don't understand nothing, you start to learn the Talmud, you learn, oh, this is what it means, totafos, you have to put these boxes on your head, but this is a command. When you do this is exactly what God wants, the essence of God. He wants you to put on these tefillin. It's a very miraculous thing. In order for this to come down into the actual physical world, like God did, we came down to the bris milah of Abraham, but except for that, nothing came to Abraham in a physical way. It was all spiritual. Kisham, it only can come from the essence of God to come into the physical world. Kisham, Maila Umata Shavim, because in the essence of God, above and below are equal. Kam Chachma, Lebechinat Asiya, Yichashev. Also, the highest level of godliness, pure, what's called Chachma, revelation of the pure essence of God, is just the same exact thing as a rock, as a stone. Kulam b'Chachma Sisa, the whole world, b'Chachma Sisa is brought several times in the Tanya. V'zeu ki aguli orech makifim regal asiya. That's what it means, that the circular aspect of spirituality of God, which is called God's crown, arich anpin, the lower aspect of God's crown, this surrounds, goes down to the lowest level, ragli asiya. It goes underneath the feet of the lowest world. It's a good thing that it does, because if it doesn't, there wouldn't be any creation. In other words, God has the ability to create everything, the lowest possible levels. And He does it from His highest possible level. But in order to reveal this fact, that it's God that's creating everything, in order to reveal this, it also has to come from this tremendously high level, HaKolel, which includes all of the four worlds below it, Atzilus, Bria, Yesira, and Asiya. Then, when you reveal from the essence of God, if you arouse the essence of God, that's what the Jewish people did when they went into Egypt, as yochal ishtalshal rotzono, then there can come God's will, gam b'davar gashmi, even into a physical thing like klaf and kadoma and etc. That's when the Jews did physical, they got physical. But Abraham, his whole thing, even though he did physical things in the world, but all he succeeded in doing was spiritual changes. Lo imshich rak bechinas penimius. He only drew down what's called the inside, the spiritual from above. In other words, he made these spiritual worlds accessible, but they had to come into action, and that's a big jump. To come from the spiritual to the physical is an infinite jump. Lo chen lo aya adayin hizkalos b'maisa mitzvahs, therefore was not revealed in the actual commandments, begashmius mamash bebechinas chitzonius, in an external way. Rakakim shelo kol Torah aya bechinas penimius, that Abraham did, the whole thing was in an internal, spiritual way. So he prepared the world to get fixed up. Right? It's something like these, something that a person who's a professor in university can explain everything. He explained everything. Right? How to make a brain operation, etc., everything. He asked the professor, did you ever do it? Nah, listen, it's dirty, I don't, you get all bloody. And, yeah. I was told the story that there was, in the Paratroopers in Israel, that there was a group that they did, I don't even know if there is such a thing as jumping from a parachute anyway, but anyway, they're called the Paratroopers. So they do training. There was one fellow in the group that he was stronger than everybody else and quicker than everyone else and more motivated than everybody else, and he was always the first to go and the first to do and the first this. They went up in the plane to jump out. He was a strong guy. They went up the plane. The first guy jumps out, second guy jumps out, third guy, he looks down, and he grabbed onto the sides of the thing, and he refused to jump out. He just was afraid. Suddenly, he just got this tremendous fear. He was brave. He would run into the enemy fire and everything, but he just all of a sudden just held on. And all of the guys, and they tried to undo his hands. He was too strong, and also he was too motivated. He was too afraid. And they had no choice. They had to say, okay, and he wouldn't let go. Nobody else could even jump. As far as anything, they had to land the plane and take him out of there. In other words, the planning, but to actually do it, to actually do the thing, all he had to do was just let go and do it. No big deal. He saw people going before him, and everybody wants to go after him. And these people are not, not as motivated as he was, and etc. But something just happened, and the physical reality of the thing compared to the spiritual preparations and etc. was,
You were saying how
incomprehensibly more real.
you were saying how big it is to bring spirituality bring it into this world and make it physical. Isn't it also just as big to bring spirituality into this world where it couldn't exist?
Right. So it says that Abraham did two things. He brought the physical down to the spiritual. Usually, what it means to make the physical world spiritual means to make the world into a vessel for godliness. Most of that is done by negative commandments. In other words, this thing I'm not going to do. This thing I'm not going to do. This I refuse to. I'm not going to do it this way. I won't do it. I won't do it this time. I won't. Right? I'll light the candles. You have to light the candles. It's a big mitzvah to light them now. But after Shabbos comes, it's a big sin. You're doing the exact same thing to light the candles, right? Where to light them, how to light them. Every single commandment is that way. That's what makes a vessel. In other words, there's limits. A person limits himself. In some ways, that's the main thing of the elevation, is to make the world into a vessel for godliness. That's one thing. But there's another also thing of making an elevation, and that is that when you use something properly to serve God, it elevates it. And it gives the example. A lot of times, like you take a book and you scramble all the letters around. And you give a person this book with all the letters all scrambled. You can't see anything. It doesn't mean anything. But each letter is important. If you draw a letter on Shabbos, it's a big sin. So a letter is an important thing. But to arrange these letters properly is a big art, if you can do it. But once you do, so to speak, you don't see the letters anymore. You see words. And then after, you don't really see the words. You just see the ideas. I mean, of course you see them, but you don't, the letters are negated to the word. And the words are negated to the ideas. Right? So a person that can, let's say he reads French, he doesn't understand French, so he can read the whole thing. Let's say he knows how to pronounce the words. He reads he doesn't understand what he's saying. So as the result, the reading is very dead, and it's very... But if a person who does read doesn't understand what he's reading, so he doesn't understand, it doesn't see, so to speak, the letters and the words don't play any part by him. Shalom, Mendel. Ma shlomcha. Okay, so that's what Abraham did. When he was ben tzaddik tes, when Abraham was 99, this all changed. Nitna lo b'matana, that was given to Abraham as a gift, the mitzvah of circumcision, b'maisa mamish, an actual deed. B'chdei sheyoled mimenu Yitzchak, in order that he would give birth to Yitzchak. Sheyetze mito, that came from Abraham afterwards. That came from Abraham, I'm sorry, and from Yitzchak, Yetze mimenu Yaakov. Afterwards came Jacob. Yaakov was Tamim. He was completely whole. Ubanav and his sons. V'yakablu Torah. Then the Jews could receive Torah after the sons of Jacob went down into Egypt, and they stayed there for 210 years. Then they were able to receive the Torah b'galut, in a revealed way, not just in an internal way like Abraham did the whole Torah. He did it all in a spiritual way. So it wasn't so important what exactly was written in the tefillin. He did it in a spiritual way. But when Judaism started to really get physical, there was actually a whole nation of people, and they went into Egypt and they all suffered together. Mitzvahs, Maisa, then there became the actual physical commandments. Lochein lo kibel Avram Torah. Therefore, Abraham was not able to receive the Torah. Why not? Lefi, because sheyotzi mimenu, there came from Abraham who? Yishmael. Okay, you with me, Rachmil? Came from Yishmael. In fact, Avram wanted Yishmael to be his his what do you say?
Yeah.
His heir. Yeah. He said, Lu Yishmael Yechiel Lefanecha. Why? Because he was so good. Abraham was so good. He just wanted everybody to be good, to feel. Rak Achar Shenimul. Only after Yitzchak, only Abraham was circumcised. Nolad Yitzchak, then Yitzchak was born. Achar Mila, after the Mila, Abraham was already 100 years old. He was circumcised himself, 99 years old. You can't imagine what this is. As then Yochel Holid Yaakov, and then Yitzchak was able to give birth to Jacob. Tamim, that Yaakov was pure, wholesome. Asher Kiblu Banav, that his sons received Torah, be mitzvahs Maisa, and actual physical deeds. And these mitzvahs that they received, this is what's called a ha'ora, was a ray of this level of igulim, of this surrounding level of godliness that's above the whole entire creation, above all existence. Af bebechinas chitzonius, then they could receive this level not just in an internal way, but also in an external way. What does it mean external? That you could go to a person that doesn't believe anything, is totally practical, no spiritual, nothing happens nothing happens spiritual in the world. There's just physical world. That's all we see. Life is just a combustion of oxygen or whatever it is. It's a big action and reaction of things. There's a lot of scientists that hold like that, right? Ki lenegdo lamayla. Even to a person like this, he can see that God exists. That's the whole thing of the Torah. Ki lenegdo lamayla min ishtalshlus mayla umata, because according to this level of godliness, which is above the spiritual. I mean, God creates the spiritual. God is not spiritual. God creates the spiritual. There's aspects of God that are spiritual. But the God that we're believing in, God, He creates the spiritual. He creates the physical. To say that God is spiritual is almost something like what they call pantheism. I remember there were these people, these guys from Bnei Brak, and they were saying, oh, Chabad is pantheism. I don't know if you know what pantheism is. Pantheism is, God forbid to say, you worship the world. You worship the world. You worship the sun, the moon, the stars, the skies.
How'd they make that jump?
Horses, because they say that God is everywhere. In Chabad we say God is everywhere. There's no place empty from God.
Doesn't mean that's...
So I said exactly the opposite. If you think that God is spiritual, that's pantheism. You're saying that part of the creation is the creator. The creation is not the creator, right? The creator creates everything in the creation. The creation has no existence on its own. But this thing is not God, right? It's a manifestation of God. It's a ray of God. It's a creation of God. But Abraham taught everybody what God himself is. God himself is. People got it a little bit in the inside, but when the Torah was given, it became physical. Then the physical Jews, the same Jews that 50 days earlier were in Egypt putting bricks together, whatever they were doing, all of a sudden they were yelling, Hashem Echad, God is one, and they were putting on tefillin, and they were doing... Tefillin is a question exactly what they were putting on. Some people say only 2 parshas. But they were doing the commandments, right? They were physical commandments. How can a simple person like this that is on... It's true that they did Sfirat Omer, that elevated them. But it didn't really elevate them to the point where they were up to, how do you say, resisting, worshiping the golden calf 40 days after the Torah was given. That's ki lenegdo lamayla, because from the essence of God, up and down are the same. That was Abraham. Let's start the new week. Huh? Bahira?
Yeah, I'm starting to get a taste of what makes Abraham, and I guess then the patriarch. To me, Abraham is one of the most non-understand. I know his greatness, but it's so hard for me to understand his greatness. Like Moshe is relatively easy compared to Abraham. And
I think I don't know if I told you the story. I think I told you the story. the story itself I've told hundreds of times, and I think it's somewhere on email. But Abraham was the one that caused me to become religious, an observant Jew. It's a long story, and I'll make it very, very short. The story was I was in university, and I graduated in philosophy, and after that I had rock and roll bands, and I was a singer in bars, different bars. And then, this was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, University of Michigan. I graduated and I stayed in the city. All of a sudden came on the scene this LSD with Timothy Leary. And it happened to be that I was a vegetarian at that time, a strict vegetarian, and LSD had nothing natural in it. So everybody was taking LSD, and I was at a big question if I should take it or not. So I went to a lecture. He came to University of Michigan, and I went to his lecture. And I was one of the lucky people that got in. I was like on the third balcony, and I understand there was like thousands of people outside, where they had loudspeakers. Right? And anyway, he gave this beautiful speech. He stood on the stage with a long white gown, and he said that everything in the world is good. Do whatever you want to. Let yourself go. You have to. Main thing is pleasure. Don't feel any guilt. Don't feel any guilt. I mean, you can maybe find the transcript of what he said somewhere. But in the middle of the whole thing, I was so tremendously impressed by what he said. Suddenly in the middle, he said, everything is good. The only thing that's bad in the world is the theistic Jews and their jealous God. To this day, I don't know if he said theistic Jews or atheistic Jews, but in any case, he said the Jews and their jealous God. So I thought to myself, what in the world? Why did he say something like that? I had like zero Jewish identity, And in Ann Arbor, and it's like, a big percentage of people are Jews. I'm sure that in that auditorium was a big percentage, even a bigger percentage of Jews, was in that auditorium. Nobody said anything. No one said, hey, what do you do? If you would have said a word against the Eskimos or the Martians or something like that, somebody would have said, hey, you're a bigot. Or somebody would have given at least a groan, or something like that. But no, against the Jews. So I thought, man, he said about the Jews, What the heck is a Jew? What's he got against the Jews? What could the Jews have done? So I went home and I started reading the Bible. I had all these other books on mysticism and all these other religions and things like that, which had already ceased to interest me, because they were all talking about going to heaven and stuff, and I had no interest in going to heaven or anything. I just wanted to know why I'm here. So I started to read the Bible in English. One side Hebrew, one side English, and I finished the story of Abraham. He did nothing. He did nothing biblical. Isaac, I figured, okay, Isaac will tell what Abraham really did, and then nothing happened.
And this is with no commentary.
No commentary. So you read this. I read the whole story. Got to the point of Joseph. That's it. End of the book. So, but this is ridiculous. There's no rituals here. There's no religion here. There's no meditations here. There's no mysticism. There's no heaven and hell. Come on, you got to have heaven and hell. Miracles. That's what a Bible is made of. But didn't these guys ever read a Bible before? What's going on here? So I was starting to think, even the Eastern religions, at least they talk about, some sort of a level that you get to, you reach to, and these different gods and the level. Not understandable statements, mystical, weird statements, So there's none of that here. So I figured, what's going on? And I read the whole 5 books of Moses. Nothing. Doesn't explain anything about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then later on says God does all these miracles, takes the Jews out of Egypt. They build this holy temple to make sacrifices, kill animals. I thought, wow, I'm for sure nobody does sacrifices today. And I'm also got this question: why did this guy hate the Jews? There's nothing here whatsoever. And then I'm starting to think the opposite way. Why is there even what is a Jew? I don't even know myself. Now I know less than I knew before. At least I knew before, Jews are like good comedians or something. But here there's nothing, no jokes. What is a Jew? What's the identity? Anyway, it's a long story, but the short of the story is I went around and asked, and nobody had any idea what I was talking about. I went and asked a rabbi, a reform, a conservative, an orthodox. And finally, I met up with somebody from Chabad. This was before there were Chabad houses. His name was Itchimir Kagan, Rabbi Itchimir. He died tragically in an automobile accident, I don't know, like 20 years ago or something. And he took me to the Rebbe, New York, 12-hour drive. We got to there on like Thursday night or something, Friday morning. Anyway, I don't remember very much of what happened. There's a funny story that I tell of what. In any case, I went to bring another Rebbe, and I saw the Rebbe speaking Shabbos. And he spoke in Yiddish. I didn't understand what was going on. There was maybe like 500-600 people there, Chassidim. And they sang this couple of beautiful nigunim. And then the Rebbe started to talk in Yiddish. He was talking, and he talked. One speech, he talked for 2 hours. And everybody was watching him. And I'm watching this man, I think, what is going on over here? This is not a spiritual man. He's not like talking quietly and rolling his eyes, But on the other hand, he's not some sort of a general. He's screaming at everyone, we're going to conquer the world. So I figured, what's going on? It's not a normal person, and it's not some sort of an angel or a guru. What is it? I thought, suddenly just snapped. I said, man, that is a Jew. This is a Jew. It's not a human being, a regular human being, and he's not an angel. I said, that's a Jew. That's Abraham. That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That all he wanted to do is just what God wants. And what does God want? That this world should be a good place. I said, I have absolutely no idea what that means, but I'm sure it's true. He's a Jew, I'm a Jew, and I stayed. And that's all it was. So that's basically that. That Abraham, on one hand, was totally incomprehensible, but on the other hand, he was a human being. He had feelings. He had conflicts in life. He had hard choices to make. He was totally devoted to something that no one in the history of the world up to that point had been devoted to in such a total way. Abraham, and Noah was devoted to Hashem. It says he was an Ish Tzaddik. He was devoted to God. Right, but nothing like Abraham. Totally incomprehensible, the things that he did. And also what God had requested from him. Circumcise yourself and you'll have a son. Oh, come on, God, you can't, I got to circumcise myself for me to have a son. You can't make a miracle. Make a miracle, I'll put a ring in my ear. I'll put a sign in my forehead. I have to do that. What for? No, that's it. He didn't ask any questions.
I never thought of it this way before, but it seems like this circumcision that Abraham gave to himself seems to be like a major turn.
Sure, that turned the whole world around.
You realize how big it was.
That's what he said here, yeah. Right. It brought for the first time the essence of God into the physical world.
Wow. And Noah was building the ark, even though that was a command by it's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. Because he did exactly what God told him to do, Noah. And Abraham did more than what God told him to do. Noah was a spiritual person.
This was after an entire lifetime of being tested.
Noah was a spiritual person. He built up his soul. Abraham sacrificed his soul. Abraham also built himself up. He was a tremendously spiritual person, but he gave the whole thing away every moment. You have to realize, if he would have killed Yitzchak, that's it. There wouldn't have been any Judaism. We wouldn't be sitting here. I mean, God would have figured out another way. He would have made another Abraham or something. But according to any sort of logical, one way, Abraham was 137 years old when he made the Akedah. So it's pretty improbable that he was going to have another son, after that. Pretty improbable.
What about Sarah?
Sure. She was 127. But he didn't make any thoughts about that. Didn't think, what's Sarah going to say? Another more amazing thing was that Yitzchak went along with him. And it doesn't really explain why. God didn't speak to him. My theory is of explaining that Yitzchak saw how happy, it says in the Tanya that Abraham, the big test of the Akedah was not what he did, but how he did it. In other words, Abraham was told by God, sacrifice your son, and he did it, it says, with zrizos amar al simcha. He did it with quickness that showed that he was happy to do it. Right? That's really crazy. But Yitzchak saw this happiness that Abraham had. This is my theory. That he saw the happiness, and he knew this happiness cannot come from anywhere except from pure holiness. As we will talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.